everybody, Smooth Terrorist here. This is going to be a response to a Sarahan06 video in which he mentions me. Take it, Sarahan.
First topic, she did the video today about some people that showed up to one of the Occupy protests. I don't know what city it was in. I wasn't paying attention. I was doodling on the desk. I don't fucking know, but these guys show up wearing the black face mask and they start vandalizing things. And I'm not sure if they were spray painting the big A, the big anarchy A on the sides of buildings or not. But they were identified as anarchists. This bothers the shit out of me. And I've seen this one too many times to not comment on it now. Now I'm pissed. Now I've finally had enough. I finally have to say it in a video. And I'm actually surprised that I have to say this in a video. I let it go and I let it go and I let it go. I didn't give a fuck. But then a couple months ago, something really did grab my attention. Someone on YouTube who self-identifies as an anarchist, who chooses to use that word, Fake Sagan, the Smooth Terrorist, whatever, I think it's the Smooth Terrorist now, said that riots for us anarchists, and you love it when people do that, they get to talk for you, us anarchists are like Halloween. They're like Christmas morning. They're the greatest fucking thing ever. We love to see that kind of shit. And I wanted to respond back then, but didn't have the equipment to, nor the patience, honestly. But I guess I'll comment on this now while I'm on the subject. If you self-identify as an anarchist, you need to understand what the fuck you are saying. You are saying that you believe in something. You believe in certain ideas. You believe in liberty. Liberty matters to you. You need to understand that that is what you are saying. And you don't get to fuck with somebody else's liberty for the sake of it. For the sake of itself. For the sake of liberty. You don't get to do that. When I see you dipshits running around fucking hurling bricks through a Starbucks window, I don't see anyone fighting for liberty. I mean, you're going to smash the state by vandalizing a Whole Foods market? That's what you're going to do. That's your contribution to anarchism. That's what you think it is. Could you do me a favor, if you're of that mindset, if you think this is the way that we're going to fix things, that we're going to solve problems with, we're going to restore liberty, if you think that's going to do it by fucking with somebody else's livelihood, do me a favor, don't spray paint that big A on any more buildings. Instead, just spray paint a giant douche nozzle on the side of that Blockbuster while you're outside urinating into the passenger seats of the cars in the parking lot. Whatever the fuck you're doing, spray paint a big douche nozzle on the side of the fucking building so they will know how to accurately describe the assholes who do this shit.
Okay, and there you have it. I seem to remember Sarahan saying back in the day that I gave atheism a bad name, and he was embarrassed that I called myself an atheist. And now he's embarrassed because I call myself an anarchist. So I seem to keep embarrassing you, Sarahan, and rest assured that the feeling is more than mutual. But just like you couldn't take the title atheist away from me, you're not going to be able to take the title anarchist away from me either. And I'm actually going to try to take it away from you, because although you didn't explicitly state it in your video, I think it comes across pretty obvious that you consider yourself an anarchist. Well, damn you for making me make this fucking video, because I'm not looking forward to... let me lay it on the line, actually, with the audience and you. This is my 5th or 6th take. I'm having a really hard time making this video. Trying to explain anarchy to most people is like trying to explain quantum mechanics to a chimp, and I'd rather dip my cock in clover honey and like shove it in a nest of fire ants than have to fucking do this. You know, it's not that it's a complex idea. There's nothing simpler than the idea of anarchy. But just as, you know, the theory of special relativity is a simple idea that just requires a whole lot of very complex explanation to make most people get it. It's the same thing with anarchy. And I'm not Einstein, so I'm struggling with this one, Sarah Hahn, but I'm going to take another crack at it. Seventh take. Let's see. To define what anarchy is, you have a problem immediately, and that problem is that you have to choose an authoritative source to get that definition from. We're talking about a dictionary, an encyclopedia, a political treatise of some sort, and we true anarchists, not you, but, you know, all five of us real ones, I know they're out there, we have a problem with authority. And that doesn't just include the authorities that prowl your street with a badge and a gun or issue press statements from an Oval Office. It also includes the phony authority of academic experts of various types. That's authority well worth rebelling against, especially since, you know, as Noam Chomsky pointed out, the academic community props up and supports, you know, governments. But as Noam Chomsky also pointed out, the terms of political discourse are very murky and ill-defined, and doubly so in the United States, where a lot of words mean the exact antithesis of what they mean everywhere else in the world. You know, look at the word liberal. From its root in Latin, it means to be free. Yet, you know, if we ask an American what a liberal is, they'll define an authoritarian communist who wants to ban everything under the sun. They're comfortable with censorship, especially when it's of something they consider hate speech. You know, very authoritarian ideology. And we call them liberal. You know, every word in political discourse in the United States is like that. They seem to be very. Each one seems to have 10 different definitions depending on who you ask, and I guess there's no reason anarchy should be any different. But to get an answer of what it really means, I'm not prepared to trust anyone with the authority to give that answer. And I think the most simple and elegant solution is to go directly to the language that gave us the word, which is Greek. Anarchy. The word has two parts. Okay. An, that's the first part. Archy is the second. An, what does that mean? Without. Right, soil that has oxygen in it is aerobic soil. Soil that does not have oxygen is anaerobic soil. It means without. Archy, archy, what's archy? In ancient Greece, an archon was a municipal official, the boss, government. It's a ruler. And other words in our language related to that, hierarchy, we all know what that means. Monarchy, when you have one archon. So you put those two halves together, and you get without rulers. Anarchy, without rulers. That's what it means. It doesn't mean anything else. And any other meaning that you attribute to that is arbitrary. It's just fiat. It's not. It doesn't derive necessarily from the word itself. You've just you've colored it with your own opinion. I say to you, Sarahan, that anarchy is a mere negation, just like atheism is. Atheism is not a bill of wares. I've had this argument before, perhaps with you, that you can't tell me I'm not an atheist because I'm not a humanist, because I don't read Richard Dawkins. I could be a person who has no interest in science or evolution, but as long as I don't believe in God, I'm still an atheist, because that's all it is. It's just a negation of the belief in God. Well, anarchy is just a negation of the belief in rulers, authority, hierarchy. That's it. It's just a negation, not a bill of wares, not a set of positive beliefs. And that brings us to the subject of hyphenated anarchists, which I suspect you are one of. What is a hyphenated anarchist? We're talking anarcho-communist. No, they don't call themselves that. Anarcho-syndicalist, right, which are communists. Anarcho-capitalists, which are fascists. There's a whole lot of these. Green anarchists, anarcho-feminists, anarcho-primitivists. There's a whole plethora, a whole diverse rainbow of hyphenated bullshit anarchists, which are anything but. Because if you unpack any of their belief systems, if you draw them out in conversation, they all have an archon of some sort. Let me give you an example. Let's pick anarcho-capitalism. An anarcho-capitalist is a special kind of anarchist who is not just an anarchist but a capitalist. And those don't really mix. To be a capitalist, you have to have secure property rights, because there can be no trade, there can be no market without secure property rights. There's nothing that incentivizes me to open trade negotiations with you if I can kill you and steal your shit. So we can't have a market without secure property rights. How does the anarcho-capitalist solve that problem? Well, that's where it gets slightly hilarious. They have all these convoluted ideas about private courts and voluntary courts, private police forces, private armies. Who funds the private police? Well, we all do. We all pay voluntary taxes because we're all such responsible citizens. We all recognize the need for it, how important it is. So everyone digs in their pocket out of the goodness of their heart, right? Sounds plausible. And what if you pilfer a loaf of bread in anarcho-capital land? Can you opt out of going to the voluntary court? Sorry, judge. This is all on a voluntary basis, right? I'm just going to go home, take the handcuffs off now. I get the feeling it doesn't work that way. So a child should be able to see what's wrong with this picture. Clearly, if you've got guys walking around with badges and guns, you've got archons. And as we've learned in the previous section, to be an anarchist, you have to be without archons. I've been accused of the no true Scotsman fallacy for saying this, and I saw that you, Sarahan, were accused of the very same thing in your comment section, but the people saying this, it's baseless. The no true Scotsman fallacy is where you add an additional qualification to something in order to escape a counterexample that disproves what you believe to begin with. So, for example, if I say no YouTube video logger is a fat, ugly, selfish piece of shit, and then someone says, oh, but the Amazing Atheist is a YouTube video logger, and he's a fat, ugly, selfish piece of shit, and then I say, oh, well, I meant to say no true YouTube video logger is a fat, ugly, selfish piece of shit. And that's, you see, what I did is I moved the goalpost. And by the way, I would love for someone to explain to me what the difference is between the no true Scotsman fallacy and moving the goalpost, because unless I'm really retarded, isn't that kind of the same thing? I don't know, but me and Sarahan aren't doing that. At least I'm not. Because if you've got archons in your belief system, then you are not without archons, hence you are not anarchist, and hence you're not even from Scotland. It's not an issue of no true Scotsman. You're not even from Scotland. You don't deserve, you're just someone calling yourself an anarchist. Do words have meanings or don't they? I think some of you anarchists are so rebellious you've rebelled against language itself. And, homie, don't play that. I want words to mean things so that we can effectively communicate ideas with each other. You can call it semantic bickering if you want, but I think, the differing definitions of anarchy in the United States have become so disparate that the word has lost its meaning. It's lost all of its original meaning. It's become a nonsense. It's become a buzzword, a catchphrase. And I think that the reason that we see so many hyphenated anarchists is that if you have an unpopular ideology to peddle, like let's say for example you're a pinko, commie, red, and you want to proselytize new commies to the teachings of Karl Marx, you've got a problem, and that's all the negative connotation attached to the very word communism. The engineered food shortages, of the Soviet Union, the NKVD, the Stasi. People hear the word communism, they think about Stalin, they think about Mao. It doesn't give them a warm, fuzzy feeling. So when you want to peddle it to the kiddies, when you want to sell your bill of wares, just slap that big circle A on there, put an anarcho in front of it, and it becomes very hip and marketable. But, if you believe in redistributing wealth and like councils and, you're a communist, you're not an anarchist. This really shouldn't require explanation, and yet it does. I think there are no less than 3 specialty titles that apply to me, and that shouldn't be necessary. I should only have to call myself an anarchist. But instead I have to be an individualist, small a anarchist. Kind of ridiculous. Small a anarchy, by the way, what does that mean? A small a anarchist as opposed to a large a anarchist. A small a believes that anarchism is a way of acting and behaving. It has more to do with what you do than what you believe. Whereas a large a anarchist is more concerned with theory than application. I consider that I'm a practicing anarchist, not an armchair theoretician. Confederal socialist, aka Fringe Elements, Ryan Falk, Stottles, whatever you want to call this guy, you know who I'm talking about. He called me a identity anarchist. He said that for me, I'm largely ignorant of anarchist theory, and it's just a egotistical affectation. I call myself that as a conceit. He was right about that, essentially. Nolo contendere. I hold that anarchy is a negation, not a bill of wares. And there's something you said, Sarahan, that I want to address before I wrap this up. And that is, you said that if you're going to call yourself an anarchist, you have to understand that that means you believe in freedom. And you can't go around infringing someone else's freedom. And the example of that infringement that you used was vandalism, property destruction at the Occupy protests by anarchists using the black bloc tactic, which the black bloc isn't a group, just like Anonymous isn't a real group. It means you dress in black, wear the bandana, wreck shit up, you're a black bloc. That's what it is. It's done all over the world. It's a tactic. Um, well, look, here's the problem I have with what you said, Sarah Hahn. You're making the all too common and all too American mistake of confusing freedom with property rights. If I brick someone's storefront window, that's not tantamount to locking them in a cell or holding a gun to their head or handcuffing them. It's just destroying their property. So the only freedom I could conceivably be taking from them is the freedom to make profit. And I'm not a capitalist. You are. That's where we differ. Pardon me. There was a movie about the November 30th, 99 protest activity at the Seattle Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization called Battle in Seattle. It starred Woody Harrelson and Charlize Theron, and not too many people have seen that film. But there's a scene in it where a group of anarchists encounter a group of liberals, and the anarchist smashes a window with a brick, to which the liberal takes umbrage and says, "Hey, we're trying to have a non-violent protest here, and you guys are going to cause us to be demonized in the press, and you're going to make this day be remembered for violence." And the anarchist points at the smashed out window and says, "This is not violence." Great line. I wish more people had seen that flick. But the point is, it really takes an American. It takes someone who's had their share of the Kool-Aid, who's been baptized in the water of capitalism, to equate a smashed storefront window with violence, to equate spray painting on a wall to taking away someone's freedom, infringing on someone's individual liberty. Those things are not tantamount. I don't respect property rights. They're not part of my beliefs. And that's one of the biggest problems in political discourse in general, as also remarked by Noam Chomsky, is how do you define what rights are? How do you define what freedom is? How do you define what oppression is? Well, that's an argument for another day. But the point is, Sarah Hahn, what is the point? The point is I'm an anarchist and you're not, I guess. Man, should I go for an 8th take? Fuck this. I'm done with this stupid ass video. If you liked it, download it, re-upload it, mirror it, copy it, make it your own, because the folks at Google can't censor me unless you let them. Oh, there is one more thing I want to point out before I wrap it up. This just came to me. It's my video, I'll end it when I want. I think that people like you, Sarah Hahn, have an undue influence on what the word anarchy is perceived to mean. Because small a anarchists who view dogmatic, rigid belief structures as archons in and of themselves, small a anarchists like me, like those black bloc kiddies at the protests, we're not writing books. We're not indulging in theory. So you guys are the ones defining the discourse. These phony, authoritarian, collectivist, pseudo-anarchists, such as yourself, such as Fringe Elements, you guys are the ones going out and telling the world what it means to be an anarchist. You're only hurting reason. You're only hurting language. Stop doing it. You're not going to change me. You'll never shame me from being what I am by changing the definition and then pointing out how I don't meet it. The only thing you're doing is hurting our ability to talk to each other. Just stop. Anyway, I'm going to take my own advice. Keep it smooth.